first ever MLS Cup final at Providence Park in Portland. It is going to be a special night. I know that people are already scrambling to get tickets to that one. Charlie, just paint the picture for us, man. What's that night going to be like? What's it mean for both these clubs? What are you excited for?
Electric. Although I would have loved to have played MLS Cup at night and not at noon. But I mean, Kalen could say the same thing. It's going to be one of the best MLS Cups, I think, in history. Portland hosting for the first time. Portland's amazing to begin with. An incredible city. The supporters are amazing. They're behind their team. They live, breathe, sleep Timbers. And now you're talking about potentially hoisting their first MLS Cup on their soil, which would be something incredible for the club. And I think New York City FC, they're trying to figure it out, right? They're trying to figure out what they are. Who are they? Because you hear, okay, you got Red Bulls. They still kind of are the team in New York City. You're playing at Yankee Stadium. It's kind of not the best of atmosphere sometimes, but they have a culture within the locker room. This is a club. And I've seen how they've grown. I think Patrick Vieira really kicked it off, really giving this team an identity, the club an identity. And now they've been able to build off of that. I think Ronnie Deila took him some time to kind of figure out how to get the most out of the squad. He's done that. Taty Castellanos came alive this year, playing in that number 9 role. And Maxi Morales, it took him a little while. I think he had a slow start this year, but now it looks like he's back to his best. So with those two, and he's always kept a strong back line with Chanot and Collins, who are arguably the best pair in Major League Soccer, or Sean Johnson, who is as consistent as you get in Major League Soccer. Man, they have something special. And they lost Anton Tinnerholm, who was such a dynamic right back in this league, and they've adjusted. So I really like what he's done with this squad. And you look at two coaches, man, if you're going to go with experience, then you got to go with Portland. And I think either way, I think we're going to get a quality game, which I'm really looking forward to, because I think New York City FC are going to dominate in possession. Portland are going to be okay with that. They're home. They're going to keep it in front, keep it close. And then on set pieces, we know what they can do. Sebastian Blanco, we don't know how healthy he's going to be. Is he 90-minute fit? Is this a coming off the bench type of situation? Either way, you got quality players on both sides who can, Dairon Asprilla, we know what he's capable of. Dairon time. Dairon. Let's go.
He's back. Give me some context here, Doyle, as someone who I don't know anybody who watches more of this league than you. As you've watched both these teams sort of get to this point, what is the context in your mind behind this final?
I mean, I thought when NYCFC were playing well this year, nobody in the league played better. That didn't always turn into results from them. Sean Johnson has been great in the playoffs. He had a below par regular season by his own standards. And then the other thing is, this team is really streaky in front of net. Taty Castellanos won the Golden Boot. He also had an 11-game scoreless drought. Jesus Medina basically hasn't scored since June. So they're weirdly really, really good, and also capable of tripping themselves up all on their own with zero input from the other team. But they're hot at the right time, and that is a good thing to be. On the flip side, Portland has been a completely different team since those August losses to Seattle and to Austin. They have completely buttoned up in terms of set piece defense, which had been killing them, and they've gotten better at not allowing runouts, and that comes from pulling their fullbacks a little bit deeper, because anytime they were in the attack before that, they were just dying to get hit in the channels, and teams were taking advantage of it. So they've become a much more solid defensive team. They attack. Sometimes it's only with 3 or 4, but when those 3 or 4 are guys like Jimmy Chara, Sebastian Blanco, Felipe Mora, and playoff Dairon, who they've had all season long, you don't really need much more than that. So they can hit you without taking big risks. And on top of all of that, Diego Chara has kept holding off Father Time. And in Christian Paredes, he has a partner now in central midfield who covers almost as much ground as he does. So they've been really miserable to play against through central midfield. I do expect to see NYCFC try to control central midfield in the way they did in the second half. And by that, I mean not necessarily play through central midfield, but just lock it down there and try to open Portland up with long switches to the flanks so that they can get those Portland fullbacks who are kind of iffy into situations where you can beat them 1v1. But, RSL tried to do that and they had no luck with it. Portland knows it's coming, and they've been very, very good over the past couple of months at dealing with exactly that kind of game plan.
There's going to be no lack of star power here. I mean, you look at the game against RSL. You have Felipe Moore, you have Santiago Moreno coming in and scoring an absolute worldie in that. In this game, Taty Castellanos comes back. You have this squadron of NYCFC young, talented signings that came in for millions of dollars. But Kalen, look, Portland might not need Sebastian Blanco against RSL to win. They might not have to have him, but it sure would be nice to have him. The circumstances dictated they didn't have to put him on, though. Gio Savarese said, hey, look, we think he's going to be available. It's not probable, but it's possible. Like, how do you navigate this next week if you're Sebastian Blanco? You want to play in this game. You have to feel like you have to play in this game, and yet you're dealing with this hamstring issue that may not mean you're at 100%, and these other guys got it done. How do you figure that out?
Well, the incredible part was when he went down for the injury, we said, okay, well, maybe that's a wrap for Portland and also a wrap for Sebastian Blanco. And, the two are very closely intertwined because he is that big of a player for them. But then to see him come back and be on the bench for this one, we were like, is this more of some gamesmanship where we just want him on the bench and as a threat to maybe change your preparation or not? But it sounds like he's made a pretty good recovery so far. And, I can only reference coming back from a hamstring injury. I got back, actually missed the conference final to come for MLS Cup back in 2012 against the Galaxy. And I'll tell you this, if you got MLS Cup waiting in front of you, you will take some risks and you will do everything humanly possible to prepare for that.
I just want to remind everyone that Kalen scored in that game. Kalen scored in that game.
Well, the interesting part was that I wasn't scheduled to start because of the injury. And so we actually trained both ways throughout the week. And I would expect Portland to do something similar, where throughout training, they'll do something where they train with Blanco in the starting lineup and without him as contingency, because you don't have to make that decision until, the night before, 2 days before, whatever it is, especially with a hamstring. Every hour can count. So I think they'll train both ways. But I think what the importance of Blanco is not so much just only that he's got so much quality, can find those important goals, but his personality. He sets the tone, which is rare for a position that he plays in on this team. As far as, the most, he's down to get a reckless yellow early in the match, set the tone mentally, psychologically for this team, along with Chara as well. But his is a little more overt. So I think they will try and take a risk with him and maybe go with him from the start, if at all possible. And I know he'll be begging to do so. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, even on this short recovery standpoint, I think Blanco will do everything. And he's going to be a tough guy walking into that office to tell Savarese, he's a big character too, but to say, no, Sebastian, we're not ready for you right now, or waiting a little bit later on the bench. I think he's going to put everything he can to make sure he's there from the start.
By the way, in the middle of a contract negotiations as well, his future with the club, a lot tied into this one. It occurs to me, Charlie, the most relieved man in the entire MLS world at this very moment is Taty Castellanos. Two just ill-timed, let's say, I had a lot of the words rolling through my brain in that moment, yellow cards to keep him out of this conference final. And his team gets the job done. And now he returns, the Golden Boot winner, their talisman. This could be his final chapter in the blue of NYCFC. How is he going to impact this match?
Well, no doubt he's going to impact this match because he's gifted. He's a gifted player. He connects well with Max Morales. They're always looking for one another. I think every player in the attacking half has their head up and they know how he moves, and that's why he's excelled. I think what stands out to me is Doyle touched on his 11-game drought without a goal. Well, after that 11-game drought, he's been absolutely lights out. He's been so consistent. And I think there was a lot dealing with you. You lose Anton Tinnerholm, who would generate a lot of the chances for New York City FC. And you're just trying to figure out, how am I going to get my chances and how am I going to mesh with a Max Morales who's not at his best. But Taty Castellanos has come alive. He knows exactly how to play off back shoulders. He also can get under the skin of his opponents. He's really good at that mind game, whether it's going down a little bit easier, winning fouls, being a little bit more aggressive and playing rough. He's good at dribbling opponents and creating his own shot. So he's going to impact this game. That's no doubt. He's a Golden Boot winner of Major League Soccer. Now it's Mabiala and Zuparic. It's on them to not give him space, to be a little bit more physical with him, to close him down, force him out wide. Don't let him come inside and cut off service. So I think this Portland Timbers team, the way they play, it's going to suit them well, because you saw Philadelphia Union today. They didn't allow them to get into rhythm. If Portland Timbers can do the same thing, and then on the transition or in the counterattack game, and especially on set piece, if they take advantage of those chances that the Union didn't tonight, then we know who's going to win this game.
I heard all of you try to give like little brushstrokes here as how you think this game will go down, what you think the tactical makeup will be. And Doyle, we'll give you final thoughts here before we give our predictions for MLS Cup 2021. Give me the Soccer for Dummies version, man. Help us understand what we might be looking at on Saturday.
Yeah, my gut says that NYCFC is going to try to have more of the ball, and Portland's going to be okay with that. That said, Portland came out against RSL yesterday and absolutely blitzed them. They completely tilted the field for the first 40 minutes of that game or so, and they controlled possession, I think, basically until about the hour mark, at which point they said, okay, we're good. You guys could have it now, and we'll hit on the counterattack. That's a more dangerous game to play against NYCFC. But I would not be shocked if Portland came out more on the front foot than everybody sort of suspects from them. As for NYCFC, they are at their best when they're on the front foot, when they have the ball, when they're pressing, winning it back high, and then having Castellanos back. First of all, he's the best defensive forward in this league by a mile. He is just awful to play against. The second, in the attack, his movement is incredible off the ball. And look, that Portland central defense has done very, very good work the second half of the year. They're not great against super mobile forwards. That is a kind of a weak spot for them. And if Castellanos is constantly getting off the back shoulder, that'll open up a gap between those two guys. And that's where you would expect Maxi Morales to find a little bit of purchase. So maybe that ends up dragging Diego Chara back. It's all maybes, though, right? Because like we've seen it repeatedly throughout the playoffs. More of how the game plays out is determined by first whistle intensity than necessarily by tactics. This game was kind of an outlier in how the tactics of the second half switched the game more than the intensity did. So I'm just looking forward to seeing who's readier to go from the gun. And then one more thing, set pieces. Portland's been dominant on set pieces. They have been for months and months now. I do think they have a substantial advantage there over NYCFC. So we've seen big games over the years in every league, won and lost on restarts. And that is, I think, Portland's biggest advantage in this game.
All right, MLS Cup 2021. We're down to one game for this season, 90 minutes, maybe 120 minutes, maybe penalty kicks. We don't know yet. We will find out. ABC, 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Prediction time. This is stoppage time, and I've got a minute of stoppage time. So don't be giving me a long diatribe here. I'm going first. Portland Timbers. Can't bet against Gio Savarese in the playoffs. Can't bet against the Timbers at home. I just think that they get it done, and it's a wonderful night in the Pacific Northwest. And Doyle, you can't wiggle out, so you're up next, man.
I'm picking the Timbers, too. 8 of the last 10 MLS Cups, which since we went away from neutral site venues, 8 of the last 10 the home team has won, so I think it'll be 9 of 11.
Kaylin, keep us going.
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to go with NYCFC. I think with, Taty back in the lineup, I think they get it done, and some big saves from Sean Johnson.
Homer away, Chuck. Homer away. Where you landing?
I know Kalen was just smart just because he lives in New York and he can't afford to put his life in.
He's got to ride the subway, man.
Put his
I might
life
be
in
going
jeopardy.
to Portland.
I'm going with the home team because of set pieces. Mabiala is a beast, but also because of Diego Chara. If I had to trust a defensive midfielder in this game, I'm gonna go with Diego Chara. And it's not necessarily the attack that's gonna win this one. I think it's the team that's most resilient, who stays compact and well organized. And I think, with that being said, Portland at home, they get it done. I think it's a tight one, but I do think they win.
All right, 3 of us say Portland. Kalen on the other side, he'll have it if they do it. NYCFC is his choice. Portland, New York City FC, MLS Cup. Saturday, December 11th, ABC Unimas, 3 p.m. Eastern. We are going to put a bow on this season, and that's it for us.
Wait, you didn't go?
I went first, Charlie. You gotta listen.
Pay attention, Charlie.
You gotta listen. You just
I heard
back
that one.
here.
I
I
heard
didn't know
that
that. Yeah, come on now. I didn't know the
I think
turtleneck
it
was
was like-
choking off your canals as well. All right, that's it for us, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll be back on Extra Time tomorrow to break it all down in more depth. We will see you on Saturday. Pre-game, post-game. Be with us. MLS Cup